What? Oh, God. Oh, wait. Ooh, the show's about to start. Guys, we won. We've been partying for 5 days straight. EU greater than NA. But we got to get going because the EU LCS is back right after this. Let's go.
G2 and the Spring Split Champions! 3 rookies prove themselves worthy of the top 4 in the EU LCS. A double kill for Perks! This guy is a madman! He can do it! Oh, Memento! You beautiful man! Guess the quadra gotta be a pizza for Kobe!
It's time to find out who will rise. This is the EU LCS.
Welcome to the EU LCS and week 4 of the summer split. In tonight's Ready Check, we'll look back at EU's glorious destruction of NA during Rift Rivals, and we'll bring the hype before our match of the week. I'm Sjokz, joined by Martin Deficio and Aaron Medic Chamberlain. We still have some confetti here and there.
I'm gone for 2 weeks and I end up doing Ready Check with Medic. Yeah. It has really gone downhill.
The best in the business.
Where's Vedius? You don't look like Vedius at all.
I did also hear that you had to put in your freelance contract that if EU embarrassed themselves at Rift Rivals, you wouldn't come back.
It's true.
So we have to thank EU for that. We also have this tiny trophy, which I'm just gonna put like here, and then it could just be here the entire. There we go. Okay, fantastic. That was slick.
I love it.
Anyway, but let's talk about Rift Rivals for realsies, because we did win last year. We suffered an embarrassing defeat to North America, but this time around we went over there and we were victorious in the final. It didn't start off great, but in the end we won 3-1 on the final day.
Game 1 of a best of 5 is never relevant.
Nope.
Game 2, 3, and 4, however, that's where we showed up. Also in the group stages, we were 5-1 if we ignore Splice, because G2 and Fnatic
and we were
did a great
actually
job.
set on ignoring Splice for the entire thing.
We planned on doing that. We thought they were going to lose to Team Liquid, but then bam, when we needed them, they showed up.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to lose to Team Liquid. I have to get a Splice shirt now because of a random bet I made. So I'm happy we won, obviously, but I'm not looking forward to my polyester lunch.
Well, let's take a look at this glorious photo. I think this is so beautiful, the fact that all the teams are together. And I want to put the spotlight on this guy in the middle. His head is a bit cut off, but Wonder from G2, because he was the Rift Rivals MVP. Honestly, he's always been good, but this is nice to have kind of a performance like that on the international stage for the Dane.
Yeah, he's always been a carry top laner. He got to play Aatrox a bunch of times, and he completely destroyed everyone with it. So many solo kills for himself, and the fact that G2 Esports have more members than just Perks in the funnel comp is really great now here in the summer split, because they can always rely on
What do you think about the naysayers who say he just abused Aatrox?
He's been so good for the entirety of the split. Yeah, they're just wrong. Like, yeah, he's good at Aatrox, but you look at last split, his Gangplank was amazing. Any carry you put him on, he plays really well. He's got like a 15 positive CS at 15 minutes at the moment in EU, so Wonder performed at Rift Rivals, but he's performed throughout the rest of the split as well.
He also got solo kills on Swain against Impact, who's supposed to be one of the better top laners in North America, but didn't look that great against Wonder specifically. So he showed up on more than just Aatrox.
Exactly.
Fantastic stuff. And it's hard to take the spotlight in G2 when we're always talking about Perks. And we do have to give credit to Perks again as part of the EU mid super crew. Both Caps, Perks, and Niski did fantastically. And Niski is the one that's most surprising, I think, if you look at last year. But honestly, in the spring split, summer split rather, he's been showing up, so it wasn't that big of a surprise to me.
Well, I just think one of the greatest achievements as a mid laner in Europe is to be called one of the EU mids.
Yeah.
You know, that's what everyone kind of wants to achieve, because that shows that you have now proven you are better than a lot of other mid laners around the world. And Niski at the moment, he's literally getting better and improving every game.
He's performing incredibly well, and you have to think about the EU mids that went over to NA. You're looking at Bjergsen, you're looking at Jensen. They've started to really like fall down in my rankings of who a good EU mid is. So hoping we can
not Bjergsen number 1 anymore?
As if
But I'm doing the right narrative.
Wait, isn't Bjergsen better than Faker?
Yeah, I mean, I was told that.
Oh yeah, that's the line. Now that Trevor's not here, you have to say that. Well, in any case, team play, great. But what also surprised me is that the special modes, the 2v2 for instance,
which was great.
Also EU victorious. Yarnan and Wadid, the best bot lane in the West. It's just how it is now because they won over Double Finoli in the final and they just crushed everyone.
We stole everything from North America.
We didn't win ARF though.
The Earth game didn't give any
doesn't count.
rewards.
Warm up.
Gotta keep in mind, big trophy if you win all of Rift Rivals. Belts, insane belts, by the way, if you win the 2v2 tournament. So they're back in Europe as well now with G2 Esports. I think good achievement from Jan and Wadid. 2 players that really benefit from the current meta with all the mages in the bottom lane, and they deserve to win it.
I do agree. When Rift Rivals first occurred last year, there was a bit of, okay, what is this? What is this going to mean? But we did see that NA was obviously very happy to win and took a lot from that. We saw kind of a reshaping of the meta in EU. This time around, even if we banter around it, it is good and is definitely a boost of confidence, especially for Splice, but must also be for Fnatic and for G2.
Oh, definitely. I think it's like for Fnatic and G2, they go out there, they have a little bit of extra experience playing at some different scrims against some of these NA opponents. Yes, it's like teaching kindergarten kids at times, but you still learn a little bit even if you teach a lesson to some young children.
You always want to win. No one likes losing. That's just how it is. I think the only sucky part for Fnatic and G2 is they probably would have preferred not showing extra strategies because they're already at the top of the standings, already playing well here in Europe. They've lost a bit of practice time as well because they had to fly back. So that could be something for this one day or 1 week. But overall, I think it's a good tournament for the teams.
It is. That's a good point. We'll see how all those teams recover. Now, you guys also went over, you and Dracos, to do the Dive-phoria, the mix between the podcast EU-phoria and the Dive. And there was a bet that if EU was to win, the guys from the Dive had to make a promotional video for EU. Let's take a look. Just kidding, because they actually didn't make it and we're still waiting for it. What's up with that?
It's what I call NA casters not living up to what they're supposed to do.
You have to give them a little bit of time to grieve. You know, their region had officially died last weekend, so now they have some time just to play their eulogies.
Fun fact, though. They were the ones who came up with the bet. They said when they came up with the bet, they already had an idea of how to do the EU promo video because they were expected to lose. Me and Drake never even thought or talked about what we could do in case EU would lose because we didn't think that was possible. So they've had more than a week to make this video. Are you
saying before Rift Rivals started, the NA casters already threw the towel in the ring?
They all put G2 as the #1 team in the power ranking we did. Jad himself doing the predictions had EU like going 5-0 on day 2. I think there's a lot of NA casters who's trying to get on the EU hype train. There's not room for more people, though.
There's no more room.
And there's a lot of EU casters trying to get off the Splice hype train as well. So let's
they won that game against Team Liquid.
They won the game against Team Liquid, even though we underestimated, and they are.
All right, enough about Rift Rivals, I think, and our glorious win. I'm sure it'll come up plenty of times this weekend, but let's focus in on Euphoria and the episode you guys shot this week with Memento and Sjokz. There was a bet again, I believe. So now for real, let's take a look.
This one slightly sucks for you because you're American, but I think the apology video, we take that, but the loser has to do, so if Memento lose this bet, we will get him a full Danish suit, like either a onesie or something, just like pure Danish, and he will make the video in that apologizing to Sjokz and myself for not believing in Misfits, and of course apologizing and admitting that Denmark is the greatest country. And you can join him there. I know you're American, but for this one you can be Swedish. And we will, of course, have to do the same in the Swedish outfits.
All right. I don't know where we get Swedish outfits for sure.
Very easy. On the internet. You can find anything.
Okay.
Yeah. But we also need a dance.
I hate the last part.
He also need a dance.
The dancing, but he just had to do it. It was already a fine bet.
I just want to see you dance, Deficio. I've never seen you dance properly.
Basically, now we have asked on Twitter for everyone who listened to the podcast to send in what kind of champion dances they would like to see. So we already know which one is the most popular. I think Zoe and Nidalee are two. Like the Nidalee one, I believe, is like pole dancing.
I mean, I would
Are you
pay
saying you'd
good
like
money.
to do that?
It wouldn't look great. I don't really have the pole dance movement.
Who knows,
Got the
man?
posterior for it though, so
I can try.
I think that's something that, I mean, we don't know. Maybe that's something that's like a hidden talent of yours. Who knows?
We will find out. Sjokz has to do it as well in case Misfits lose later.
Okay.
I will say, though, it was actually a really good episode. Both Sjokz and Memento were great at explaining their thought process behind the tier list they did for jungle and mid lanes, and also when we did the power rankings for the entire league. There's some surprises, I think, overall, and people should definitely check it out.
You guys can check that out on SoundCloud, rather, on iTunes and on YouTube. It was a very interesting episode indeed, setting us up for week 4, because back to the EU LCS, let's take a look at where we left off after everyone left for Rift Rivals, G2 Esports and Misfits Gaming at the top of the table, 6-0 undefeated, later up versus each other in the match of the week, followed by Fnatic and Team Vitality. Now, I'd like to kick off the discussion of playoffs. We are almost in the halfway part of
Every game counts.
Every game counts. There we are again. But if you look at these 4 teams that are at the top of the table, G2, Misfits, Fnatic, and Team Vitality, how certain are you that these teams are 100% going to be playoff teams as well?
For playoffs, I think like 90 to 100% certain. I don't see any of these teams dropping out of that top 6. In fact, I don't really see any of them dropping out of that top 4. G2 and Misfits look dominant. Fnatic continue to improve and always have Reckless in their back pocket. And Vitality, although maybe not as strong as last split, have found new carries for their team. And I think they can adapt to any meta that comes along.
I would say out of the 4 teams, if one of them is going to drop out of top 4, it would be Vitality for me. I think Fnatic, Misfits, G2 are just playing too good at the moment. Vitality, I have some question marks. You know, I think the way they are playing the game is a little bit too much group 5-man mid and run at the enemy team to teamfight them.
But isn't that the meta, though? Is that not what works?
It is a meta for some teams, but it's something I feel like most of the teams can deal with because it's not hard to play against. They just do the same. And then who teamfights the best? I can just see Vitality drop
Vitality are teamfighting the best at the moment, Deficio.
Not better than all of these teams.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if I had to pick one of the 4, I think it would be Vitality
that would
to drop
down
out of the top 4.
But when we look at Misfits and Vitality, those 2 teams, they did not go to Rift Rivals out of the other 2, about G2 Esports and Fnatic. So they will have had some time to practice a bit more. They won't be jet lagged. They will be
Misfits
fresh.
took a week off.
Oh, they did?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
They just went on holiday for a week.
Oh, wow. If you're 6-0 and you're basically playing the best early game of anyone in the EU LCS, I think
Are you sure you were allowed to say that?
I mean, it was on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So if they were trying to hide it, they did a very poor job.
Maxwell took some time to put up some nice leather jacket photos.
He
A lot of
definitely
photos,
did.
that is true.
Great photos. Good reply from
Well,
him.
I mean, maybe we'll see tonight. Maybe they're just as jet lagged then as G2 Esports.
Yeah, from the holiday.
We'll see. But we also saw Attila there for Vitality. I am expecting a lot from those 2 teams, even if they didn't practice hardcore the whole week. They had some time to stay here, and they didn't have to go halfway across the world in a weekend back.
Definitely.
So.
I mean, there's no jet lag on their side. They didn't have to show anything. I think that's a big deal because G2 and Fnatic have shown all these different things. These guys have been studying that and then prepared an answer to whatever these teams can bring.
And here we see who Vitality is going to play. Today, H2K, and then tomorrow, Misfits, then G2, and then Splice. So I think if we have some questions about Vitality and how long they can keep this going, they will get answered this week and next week for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't actually think Vitality should feel too hard done to if they lose their next 3 games. I think they're definitely going to be able to beat Splice. Actually, no. If they lose against H2K, they should feel hard done to. But if they lose against G2 and Misfits, you accept that. That's the middle of the split. You're going to beat Splice later on anyway.
So consensus is that these 4 teams are going to make it in playoffs.
They'll make the playoffs,
Only 6 spots in playoffs, which means there's only 2 spots remaining. Let's take a look at the teams that are right below that top 4, top 3. We have Splice, the Unicorns of Love, Sjokz, and Rocket. Now, I want to know from you guys who has the best cards to make it to playoffs.
The best cards,
I keep thinking about this, and
it's got to be Rocket at the moment. Like, Splice showed us a little bit of Rift Rivals, but Rocket have been consistent in the EU LCS. They're 3-3 at the moment. Memento looks strong. Their ability to somehow win games, even when I think they're going to lose games, gives them so much more than any other team on this list.
I agree on the Memento one. I disagree with the consistent one.
Okay.
I feel like whenever you get excited about Rocket, they get destroyed in 20 minutes. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because most of what they try and do is based around winning early skirmishes with Memento and Blank. If that backfires, they just fall, like, they can't do anything.
Hold on, we have a Sjokz here that
I'm
never
not
does
saying the other
anything
teams
in the
are way
early game.
better. I'm just saying Rocket is not consistent, which is why I'm not going to lock them into a top 6 spot.
So you'd rather get a team that is aggressive in the early game, tries to win their own games, than a Sjokz, who in all honesty is pretty passive.
Yeah,
all right.
It's true. Like,
so talk to me about Sjokz.
I think Sjokz right now needs to figure out, okay, who are the winning lanes we can play around? Nuke Dog is solid in the mid lane, but the bot lane doesn't do anything. They literally sit back and just passively farm, slightly lose, which means they can't play around the bottom side. And I don't think Amazing is going to win you the early game either. So I really feel like Mr. Chachi, and that's why we have him on the screen, is the one who needs to be in more of a playmaker role, where he can actually have an impact in terms of forcing fights, play around him a bit more, less around the bottom lane. I think you get a more proactive Sjokz then.
I think the important thing to highlight here is the 3 other players we've looked at are kind of the key players for their team that are currently doing well in times, whereas Chachi does not look good at all at the moment. He went 0-6 in an Ornn matchup that was really bad for him. He gets camped, and unless Sjokz start actually playing around that top side of the map, he's not going to be able to do anything.
And the reason why we have these expectations is because this is a guy that was feared in the top lane. And I hear that in scrims that is still the case. He was the MVP in summer for the Unicorns of Love. And if you see that teams like G2 are playing around Wonder, Vitality is playing around Kabashard, you know that it's possible. But maybe it needs not just enabling Vizicachi, but it needs some other picks maybe in the bottom lane as well to make all of this work. They need a relatively big shift, I think, to get going for that race for playoffs.
Definitely. I think they tried with getting Amazing in the lineup because they kept talking about getting a more proactive jungler who could make calls and force plays. But a lot of the plays we see in the early game backfire from him, and he gets to flash or he dies early. So it makes it hard for the rest of the team. But I just want to see a mindset shift because they've tried now for almost a year to play this kind of style, and it's resulted in not a playoff spot in spring, currently not a playoff spot in summer either.
So then tell me, out of these 4 teams that are now the closest to those 2 spots in the top 6, who do you think deserves to make it to playoffs?
Deserves.
Right now,
Deserves.
I definitely think Splyce and Roccat. Deserves right now. Splyce looked really good at Rift Rivals beating Team Liquid. Roccat are in 5th place at the moment. They have been the most consistent of these 4 teams that we have in front of us. And if you're going to pick 2 right now, it has to be Splyce and Roccat.
I'm wearing a blue suit.
Oh, there we go again.
I've done this for 6 months
They
now.
don't
You're
deserve
such
it,
a
though. They have to
shill.
start winning.
None of these deserve yet to be in playoffs because they need to win more games. But Schalke have a very easy schedule coming up.
That's true.
They have played against all the top teams, and they are now the same score as Splyce and as Unicorns of Love. I think they will make playoffs, but I don't think they're way better than the other teams.
No believers for the Unicorns of Love?
I had faith in Unicorns last split. I had faith in them last split, but unless somehow they can find a way to unleash Exile in every single game and actually have him going 10-0, you know, the big Exile carry, I don't see how Unicorns make it.
We also don't know with now Neon playing AD carry.
That's unfortunate for
Samax,
them.
of course, is sick, so he's not in the lineup right now. We don't actually know what's going to change. Luckily, in this meta, you can just put your AD carry on like a Morgana, a Karma, something a little bit more passive where you don't need to play around bottom side, and then it's all about Exile in the mid lane. So I think Unicorns can definitely still make playoffs. They play just as well as the other 4
You're
teams.
just hedging a bet between all the teams.
like,
Like,
all
all right,
my
Roccat
kind
look
of-
I'm
okay,
going
Schalke
Schalke.
okay.
I pick Schalke, and you know what? I pick Unicorns of Love.
There we go. I mean,
Just
I'm
to be
going.
easy as well.
I'm going to admit it is pretty difficult because we're only in week 4, but it's good to kind of get a little bit of a preview to see who you guys think will make it through. Let's take a look at their matchups for week 3 and see some pivotal ones in the race for playoffs. The Unicorns of Love, for example, up against Roccat. So if you win that one, then you make a big statement. Schalke up against Giants, which, as you said, they have a relatively, I won't say easy, but they have a good schedule. They played all the top teams, and now they play teams that are lower league.
Yeah, I will admit, I panic if they lose both games this week. When they play against like Giants today. I mean, that is a must-win game if you want to make playoffs.
Is this make or break week for Schalke?
It is 100% for me make or break. Like, if they go 0-2 this week against what should be easy opponents in the EU LCS, I think playoffs is too far away from them. But Rocket Unicorns is the 50-50 game for me. Fun if I said Unicorns making playoffs, I actually predict Rocket to win. So, woo!
Just going all over the place. But yeah, I think the Roccat Unicorns, when you've got Neon subbing in, you're not quite sure what he's actually going to bring into that bot lane. Used to play in Challenger Series for Origin and didn't do too well
Memento
there
the tweet,
either.
of course, they bring in a sub
That's
because
the curse for
Roccat
Roccat.
always
That's
lose
true.
to subs.
We know if they lose, that's our post game. We literally just say,
Subs.
always lose to subs.
Let's take a look at the predictions for you guys. Deficio, you just said that you did predict Roccat to win over the Unicorns of Love, and Medic voted for the Unicorns of Love to win. Everything is kind of the same, and also correct predictions at the bottom. I'm tied with the fans. That's good. We're both pretty bad. And then Deficio is actually behind Vedius and Ender still.
I'm ahead of Ender.
Ahead of Ender. sorry.
I'm only 1 point behind Vedius.
I love the way you say that with such pride in your voice. You're still worse
I'm
than
ahead of Ender.
Vedius.
I know, I'm worse for now. Slow starter, great finisher. That's what I'm known for. I'm really sad, though, that I have the same predictions as the fans.
Yeah.
Because they tend to be wrong with at least 2 out of 3 per game.
Are you saying I'm wrong too?
I mean, it looks like it for now, so I'm a little bit concerned.
You have to give them credit, though. They are at 66%. 2 out of 3, 2/3. That's pretty good predicting. Like, if you gave me that as
I'm aiming for 5 out of 5, baby.
Yeah, but you're never going to hit
I
it
don't
'cause
want
you're
that
bad
3
at
out of 2 or
predicting.
3 out of 5 thing. I need all of them. I actually think today it is going to be 5 correct ones for you and me and
Great.
the fans.
Well, that doesn't. I should actually take more risks. I should.
If you want
pick
to
something
win,
else.
yes.
Push the boat out a little bit. That's what I did with Unicorns. That's what
Push
I've done
the-
with GT. Push the boat out.
Push the boat
Push
down.
the boat
push
out?
Yeah,
I've never heard
you push
that.
the boat out onto troubled waters. You're taking a risk. If the boat's by the bay, you're not taking any risk. It's tied up, but it can't be useful.
All right, well,
Great.
let's
Yeah.
see who pushes the boat out between G2 and Misfits as they
push that
face off
boat.
in our match of the week. There are 2 undefeated teams in the EU LCS. Let's take a look at what's on the line.
For G2, This is a battle to reclaim the top spot. Fnatic knocked them off their perch, but they've been there recently. Misfits, last split they were dire. They were astronomically bad. This is their redemption arc, and if they beat G2, they're right at the pinnacle.
We had a horrible regular season, and I still feel that if we would have made playoffs, we would have had a way better showing than anyone would have expected.
Last split, we were playing really poorly compared to the old G2 lineup. I feel like in time we can surpass them.
Both of them are striving not to be the teams they were in the past, but to be better, to be more.
Honestly, we're not playing this split with regrets. Instead, we are just not repeating the same mistakes.
Across the first 3 weeks of the EU LCS, we've seen G2 play a unique style of League of Legends. They have this funnel comp. They pour all of their resources into Perks, and they let him carry the game. And yes, everyone has to work together. If you're looking at a key man for that team, you're always looking at Perks.
This one, you better let me have it. Down goes Sjokz and the penta from Perks.
Misfits have just stuck with the standard. They haven't really experimented, and they haven't needed to because they're so good at standard League of Legends. They're so good when Hans Summer has a marksman. They're so good when Maxwell has a jungler that can make plays early.
I would say we are far more aggressive. We're not afraid of going for early game compositions and trying to snowball the hell out of them.
We just have a better flow together as a team. We have better synergy. We know what each other wants to do.
This meta suits them well, so we need to prove them that we are still better. Otherwise, they might take over Europe.
I actually don't remember losing a series to Misfits like in my life. I mean, I guess we had a good track record against Misfits.
Sjokz used to be the weak point of Misfits. He's the reason Misfits don't win all their games, and now he's totally transformed. He's an entirely new player. He carries that team on his back some games, and you have to wonder, is Perks actually going to be able to match up against the new improved Sjokz?
Eating their dominance over Fnatic, chasing Brox underneath the tower. Sjokz gets the final shot, gets the double.
I mean, last split there wasn't talk about Caps, right? But he's always been in the talk for the best mid lane in EU. But I mean, this split is my split.
And the joy with Misfits is because they're playing this traditional AD carry style, you've got Hans Summer there on a marksman in the middle of the team, carrying them on his back.
I really hope they play the funneling comp against us so that I play against them and just smash them.
9-0, baby. 9-0.
I don't really care if they play Super Kaiser, to be honest. They just played against teams who didn't know how to play against it, and now they're gonna face the best team in EU. They can boost whatever and they will still lose.
Be very careful though, Misfits, because there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. If you step over that line, G2 will crush you.
We think that the gold funneling meta is the way to go, so we will see when the both tactics crash against each other, which one will come on top.
But I feel like when they're gonna face us, I think it's not gonna be that easy for them. If you go funnel comp, I think we will win.
Whoever plays each other and wins, it's just the better team.
I think it's hype to play against Misfits because both of us are 6-0. I don't remember the last time the teams have been like actually undefeated and they face each other in the big 4 split. Yeah, both of us are doing pretty well, and it's gonna determine who is the best team in EU LCS.
Fantastic matchup, huge stakes, both undefeated, the G2 Esports and Misfits. Sjokz is looking forward to that match. I can't wait, but as we preview the match of the week, we're going to do it a bit differently. We're going to do it 1v1 me bro style. Deficio, he's a fan of Misfits, and he is going to tell you exactly why Misfits is going to win, and Medic is going to tell you exactly why G2 is going to win. Now, you can vote in the chat to decide who makes up the best arguments. So spam G2 or MSF in the chat. Guys, give me your arguments. Who's going to win our match of the week?
I'll start off, Deficio. I know you probably got jet lag from coming back from Rift Rivals, but G2 have all of that extra scrim experience. They've been able to play up against some of the best teams in North America. Maybe not that much of a challenge, but a different meta at least. G2 going to take this one easily.
So you already said it. They scrimmed NA teams, which means they've gotten worse practice than Misfits, who were staying in Europe
They took a
for
holiday.
now. There's no jet lag for Misfits whatsoever. They'll be able to scout multiple games on stage. There's nothing G2 can do in this draft to surprise them. Misfits will already have the upper hand before the game even starts.
But it doesn't even matter if Misfits have the upper hand, because the hand that it's carrying is Sjokz. And when you compare him to someone like Perks, there's no way on earth Sjokz is ever going to win that matchup, Deficio.
And that's why it's good for Misfits. They don't need Sjokz to carry, because they have a bot lane that's currently winning almost every single game with marksmen down there that can actually team fight. And they have Maxlor, best performing jungler in Europe at the moment, who's completely taking over games, always staying ahead in experience. And I don't even think Perks get a chance to fight Sjokz 1v1.
I mean, Maxwell can try and grow a beard to hide the fact he doesn't know how to jungle path, but look at the top lane. Wonder is the Rift Rivals MVP, the best top laner in the western side of the world. And you play him against someone like Alphari, who only plays tanks and doesn't really do much. I know who my money is on.
Listen, Alphari is stable, never dies in lane. How many solo kills did Wonder get in the EU LCS so far?
Enough.
No. Please, try and answer.
Enough.
He got one. A single one. He's not playing against NA top laners anymore. I think Alfari is going to match Wonder. He's going to stay even with him. Bot lane will win for Misfits. You're getting awfully close to me.
You're delusional.
But I'm
You're
just telling
delusional,
you,
Deficio.
Misfits got
Sjokz
this one.
Like, I've got to take him to the hospital. He's delusional.
I'm telling you, Misfits will win. Misfits will win.
No way.
Misfits got it.
Are you guys coming back? What is this? Let's take a look at who won the argument. 55% for Deficio and Misfits, so you guys voted at home, and 45% for G2 and Medic. I don't know how much of that is Deficio's argument. And how much of that is
Oh yeah, good stuff. You won here. You're not going to win at the end of the day.
Keep in mind, Misfits is 3 letters. It's even harder to type in chat than G2.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The extra APM that they had to put in.
Win
oh,
right
I'm so
here.
sorry, Deficio. Holy shit, you're heavy.
I know. The chat spammed Deficio, and I'm here.
There we go. And his first appearance on Ready Check, and boom, he already drops a swear word. We're going to remember that. But let's, seeing how we are 3 minutes and 40 seconds away from our first game of the day, H2K versus Vitality. Let's jump right in and talk about Vitality. We talked about them a lot at the top of the show. They are currently at the top of the tables. And the question for Deficio is, when will the other shoe drop? We will see. But if we look back at how they won games in spring, it was all about the Italian Stallion. It was all about Jizuke. So it personally makes me happy that they are showing a different dynamic.
It is true. It is good that more players are in the spotlight now. It's not just the Jizuke show. Gets a little bit harder for us also to do the narratives because we can't just say one name every single time. But yeah, looking at Kapashot, who's playing in multiple different roles, a lot of different champions, but also the man in the bot lane, Jack Troll.
Yeah, I mean, you want me to talk about Jack Troll?
I was going to do like, bam, give it to you.
Cool. Okay, I'll talk about
Vedius would have picked up on
What
it.
I love about Jack Troll is his ability to roam.
I'm going to save you. Actually, we were supposed to talk about Kabusha first, but he jumped the gun, so let's go.
What I love about Jack Troll is his ability to roam around the map. When he gets something like the Pyke, who can get easy ganks off, who can go invisible, who can roam around, help out his mid laner, synergize with Gilius, Jack Troll is in such a strong position, and he just helps out his team in every single situation.
Yeah, we saw him there try to get the Darius fed, and then suddenly the next clip is just, Kapashot using that advantage, and they want, once again, it's Jack Troll on Pyke.
And what we're seeing in winning teams overall is that the supports don't spend that much time necessarily with their AD carry / bot lane partner, they roam.
Yes, and that's another big part for Vitality is you don't need to just sit in lane. European supports, unlike actually the North American ones, which was a big change at Rift Rivals, European supports roam all the time. They love to play Pyke. They love even to grab Alistar. And as a mid laner in Europe, you're never playing 1v1. There's either jungler or as a top laner, or there's that stupid support always come in to try and kill you. So it actually gets really hard to play the game if your support is not roaming. Luckily, Jack Troll is always active.
So if we compare the Spring Split Vitality and how aggressive they were and how they like to win games, how is this Vitality different? And is it a better way to play the game or a worse game?
See, I'm going to interrupt Deficio here because
I didn't say anything.
You think it's the worst way to play the game. You say they group up mid, they help out the fact that Jizuke is not as good as he used to be, or at least not performing to his full potential. And so they group mid and they force team fights. And to me, that's fine for Vitality, because Kabashot's getting ahead, their bot lane's getting ahead, so then you can just force teamfights when you're ahead as a team. And they're a very strong team-fighting team as well. So in a matchup like against H2K, you don't really need to do much more than the basics and do them well.
Definitely agree against H2K. The style they play now is easier. It's always easier to group 5 than play on all 3 lanes with split pushers, 100%. However, I don't feel like they have the same highs this split with the current play style, because last split the top teams were afraid of Vitality because they were hard to play against. Jizuke would get fed, he would take over one lane, and then suddenly you never knew what was going to happen. Now they are more predictable because it is a lot about grouping and team fighting. So I feel like teams know how to, or at least they know how they can try and beat Vitality. Bottom teams, though, can't match the team fighting.
And the same question marks we had in spring is when Vitality was behind, they had a very, very hard time coming back in games. And we haven't seen that yet. They still play very, very snowbally. So in the next 2 weeks, when they play G2 Esports, when they play Splice, we will be a bit wiser overall. And this is where they go up against H2K. And man, with the way Vitality has been playing, with the way they were 2-0 before Rift Rivals, they seem to have found an excellent way to play the meta. They are performing out of their minds, and now they are up against H2K. Now, H2K has not found a win yet. They are 0-6. How in the world do H2K win this? Casters, you can answer that for me.
That's the hardest question. I've been working on this one for like days, it feels like. It's been a long time. I've got my formula here. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's going to